Welcome to Next Economy Now. The goal of this podcast series is to highlight the leaders who are taking a regenerative, bioregional, equitable, democratic, racially just, and whole systems approach to creating the new economy.
I am Shawn Berry, a partner at Lift Economy. My guest today is Jesse Brown. Jesse is a serial founder and entrepreneur with over 20 years of media production and storytelling expertise. Jesse believes deeply in the power of place and brings a comprehensive set of skills from content creation, advertising, sales, and event production to the table. He loves to connect people and organizations in ways that help everyone realize their goals, and he couldn't be more excited to be building the local streaming platform Hutsy in the same place where he grew up. I'm excited to speak with Jesse today because he is leading the way forward in local storytelling, cooperatives, and next economy development right here where we both live in the Hudson Valley of New York. Jesse, welcome to Next Economy Now.
Yeah, Shawn, thank you so much for having me.
Woo, good to have you here, brother. It's a long time in coming.
I know, I'm excited. I'm such a fan of the podcast and listened to so many episodes. I'm so honored to be here with you.
All right, man. Well, let's start it off with you. And where are you from? And how did you come to the work you're doing today? Take us through the story of Jesse Brown.
Yeah, I can do that. Where am I from? I am from the Hudson Valley, New York. I was born and raised here. Born at home in Stone Ridge. And from there, kind of bounced around a little bit in the area. Spent some time in Onteora school districts and Rondout and Rosendale school districts. And then bounced across the river for a bit, Poughkeepsie, and then bounced back and was at Ulster Community College and then attended college up in SUNY Albany. So kind of got to bounce around a bit and see a nice little look at the area and really got to experience the Hudson Valley from both sides of the river, I think, which was really a unique experience. After some time in college, had started to get into snowboarding and been really attached and desired to see the mountains and had never really been out west or anything. So when I got done with school, my brother was done with school and we were looking for just to see the country a little bit more and to learn a little bit more about places besides where we were from. So we ended up buying a van and gutting it, an old phone company van, and me and my brother set off for about 6 weeks in that van, traveling around the country, going out to Colorado and California and Oregon and all these different places. And it was partially kind of a journey to see where we might want to live and where to kind of go and explore somewhere different. And that journey led me to Jackson Hole, Wyoming, super randomly. My brother had a friend from college who was going there and asked us to kind of check it out. And we did. And so I kind of ended up there, thought I'd just be there for a winter. And simultaneously at that time and kind of towards the end of college, I was getting into storytelling and filmmaking, had picked up some cameras and just was a little bit more of a hands-on learner. I had a hard time finding the stuff in school that I really connected with. And so I think photography was just a place that I could kind of enjoy a little bit more and really kind of be creative with. So when I got out to Jackson Hole, it's this gorgeous, amazing place. And I'm out there fresh out of college with this mindset of, find something you could do for free and figure out how to get paid at it. And I was like, wow, snowboarding looks pretty cool. And if I could do that for a living, that'd be not a bad way to spend my days. And at the same time, they're having a little job fair at the Jackson Hole Mountain Resort. And I went there and there was a job to work at the Jackson Hole Park and Pipe, which is where you kind of build the terrain parks and the half pipes. And I was like, wow, that's cool, and different. A lot of the jobs are working as lift operators and different things. So anyway, kind of got into Jackson Hole. And from there, connected with a lot of really good snowboarders in the area and quickly realized I probably wasn't going to be a pro snowboarder, seeing how talented they were. And so it was like, you know what? Well, this photography thing is great. And maybe it could kind of get me close and keep me in the mountains. And so I started to pursue kind of snowboard photography. Fast forward that a little bit. I had all these pictures at the end of the year and was kind of not sure what to do with them and asked some other photographers that worked in the industry. And they said, you kind of send your pictures to the major snowboard mags in California and Utah at the time and places like that. And I remember thinking that was a little interesting. Why would we send all of our pictures and stories to somebody who lives in another area and then they'll kind of decide what's relevant and then the rest of it, you're just not sure what to do with. So myself and another local snowboarder, Lance Pittman, who was from the area, kind of got together with this idea of why don't we create our own snowboarding magazine in the region to kind of celebrate our community, our culture, and give a place for our own stories to live. And so that was in hindsight, kind of the beginning of my step into maybe localism and storytelling and the intersection of the two. And for me, it was just about making something cool and unique but it became a foundation of kind of what I'm doing today. And I ran that for 7 years. We were able to grow it quite a bit. We ended up having another publication, a golf magazine as well. And then, towards 7 years, I was feeling a missing home. I was feeling, a desire to maybe do some things outside of snowboarding. And from there, kind of pursued the idea of selling the snowboard magazine or finding some new people to kind of take it on so that I could move back east and be closer to my family. And so kind of went through that process and then spent about 5 years in New York City doing commercial work and other web work and stuff a little bit more detached from the community work that I was really drawn to in Jackson Hole. And I think eventually started to really miss that. And that started to kind of make me look at moving back upstate to upstate New York, where I was from, and kind of get back into starting this Hutsy thing and kind of what I'm doing right now. So hopefully that sets some of the foundation and makes some sense there.
Yeah, I get it. So it's interesting. You leave home, right, to like connect to a place and what was unique about that place. And that's, it's interesting that you had that observation of like, hey, why are we sending the photos to California? Like, who are they? This is our place right here. This is, why does somebody else tell us what's relevant? So I love that epiphany. So tell us about Hutsy. How did that start? Like, what was the idea? And also not just what it is, but like how you're setting it up and how you're doing it seems, almost as important as what you're doing, right?
Totally. Yeah. So, in coming back up, I wasn't just looking for more community and to get closer to the area. Truthfully, I got my ass kicked in the city, just chasing money and chasing the dream and, kind of lost track with passion and connectiveness with myself. And so when I came back up, I was, naturally looking to align with some other people who I thought were kind of, that I could resonate with and the things that I was looking for and kind of get back to what I was focused on, which was telling stories and, being out in nature and being involved in my community. And so I was looking for programs that could allow me to do that. And I came across a program called the Good Work Institute that was going on in the area. So I'm actually a friend, I think Bob Dandrew is who originally introduced me to the program. And I went to a session and I was intrigued. I liked what they were talking about. I liked what Matt, who was the founder, was talking about, this idea of doing good work in the world and this idea of using business and entrepreneurship to make a difference. It was what I was always kind of called to, and it felt like that's something I wanted to be a part of. So I enrolled in the program, and luckily I did get accepted, and it was an amazing 6 months with 30 plus of some of the most incredible people I've ever got to meet and be around. It was exactly what I needed. I was at a bit of a low place in my life. I wasn't just looking for a career change. Or just not a career change with film, but just a different way to pursue film, but also I was just looking at the world differently, and I wanted to represent that in the way I moved and the way I worked. And so the program went on for a while and had a lot of great things. And towards the end, they kind of had this idea about like, well, what's your project that you'll move forward with? And, I kind of sat back and first, of course, was like, I don't know. I got nothing to offer. And like, man, it's kind of challenging. It makes you feel like almost dumb for a minute. You're like, I don't know what to offer. And then I kind of started to think back to the snowboard magazine days and this idea. The snowboard mag was interesting because it was a vessel for creativity, but also in having distribution was a bit of an epiphany for me as a young artist, that when you combine creativity with your own distribution, it's a whole different beast, and you kind of have a more say of what you're going to be doing creatively. And as I was back here, I started to see a lot of incredible creative people, but it was a lot less focused on what local distribution could kind of look like. And so in that moment of thinking, what's something that could be created that could be great for your community while honoring your kind of skill sets, it started dawning on me this idea of essentially a digital version of kind of the snowboard mag, this place that we honored the stories and the content that already existed and created a foundation and a platform to create new stories. So it really was the Good Work Institute and that program that kind of was the perfect just incubation to kind of come out with this idea that, I actually, towards the end of the snowboard mag, started to pivot towards this video idea, but it was like 2008. It was pretty early, and there just wasn't the video content to get it off the ground. And so I kind of abandoned it. And so, yeah, it was just interesting to kind of come back to full circle. And then, so now we had this idea. The program was kind of ending, and it's like, okay, now where do we go from here? This sounds like a really great idea, but it sounds really big. And how do we even begin to get something like this off the ground?
So that was 2017, huh?
That was 2017. I think, that's the year we met.
It's amazing. Yeah, so I met you at Williams Lake, chilly March morning. We had a little bonfire out there. And so it's hard for me to imagine that I knew you pre-Hutsy.
You did. Right in the beginning, because that was more
right?
towards the beginning of the or the middle of the program, because we were doing our place tours, and this probably started to happen towards the end. So that was probably right. And it was funny, not that I don't step back and say Hutsy's this tech company, but we're definitely at the intersection of storytelling, community work, and tech. And I remember thinking, wow, tech is where it's at, and tech's where you can do these great things. And I was like, I'm never going to think of anything that would be tech oriented. I'm like a guy who creates paper magazines. I don't know what tech could look like. So yeah, it's interesting to see how much has changed from that moment to now. And ultimately, we've been working on this project pretty much since right after then. So for about 5 years now, we've been working on this.
Amazing. So I love that as the deep story of you and how this came about. If I'm new to Hutsy, how do you pitch it to me? And what is it, and what are reference points for understanding it?
Yeah, it's a video streaming platform for the Hudson Valley, New York. That's probably the easiest way to describe it. And we don't always like to use this example, but it's easiest. We kind of say it's the Netflix for the Hudson Valley. Netflix in the idea and that people understand what that looks like and what that type of a platform could be. Very much not Netflix-like in the way that we operate, the way that we treat our community, the way that we think around equity and those types of things. But it's an idea, it's a new idea in that we think a region could have its own streaming platform, that there's enough content and enough stories that could be celebrated and create a kind of an identity, and building upon what other magazines had done in the past that kind of takes us into this new video atmosphere. And they call it an OTT platform, which is really just fancy for kind of over the top, which is essentially what puts the app onto things like smart TVs and those types of apps and devices and stuff. So, and it's built upon this movement of platform cooperativism, that this idea and that we can take cooperative ideas into the tech space and build something that's new and innovative in that idea. So Hutsy is a video streaming platform for the Hudson Valley, New York. It's building upon the cultural legacies of other magazines and things that have represented regions before and taking it into video streaming. And it's taking it into the innovation of equity and thought around creatives and artists in the fact that it's also structured as a cooperative. So that's kind of the long-winded. I know the folks who are watching this podcast, understand or listening those types of things. So it's easy to kind of speak about it.
Yeah. So I get it's probably a lot of folks listening, right? They probably shop at their local farmer's market, right? And they probably eat local, seasonal, fresh. But where's their media coming from? It's coming out of New York. It's coming out of LA, right? This is global networks, but they're not consuming their own local storytelling, right? So talk a little more about why. Again, with our listeners, they probably get it of why you would eat the local fresh produce. What's the difference if they watch a local story versus something coming from around the world?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think you set it up perfectly, right? We talk about local food because with the system being so disconnected and detached at this point, we don't really know where food is coming from, who's creating the food. And so to kind of overcome that disconnection, you want to get to know the people growing your food. Well, it feels like we've kind of headed in the same place with media now. There's such a disconnected system. And at the same time, there's been a mass kind of consolidation of the media industries, right? So there's very few major players behind the media. And so it started to ask me, myself, bigger questions of why am I so concerned with what's going into my belly? But what am I thinking about with what's going into my mind? And it brought me back to some of the snowboard mag days where I'm not going to sit here and say that local media is perfect and doesn't have some of its own things, whatever. But what I really like about local media and what I like about what we were doing is it naturally formed a level of accountability and trust, because you're living in the same community as the people that you're telling stories about. Chances are you're shopping at the same supermarkets, attending the same local parks and events. And so you're going to see each other. And when you see each other, it creates a level of responsibility and accountability to try to do the stories right, to do justice by it, to do your community. And to me, I think that's really important, because I think if you look at, say, a large corporation that may be financially struggling, and the answer is to cut an entire division of that company because on paper it's a spreadsheet and you don't know their families and you don't know the people attached to it, it's a pretty easy decision. And that's how capitalism tends to thrive, is you can make those decisions very detached. And so for us, we see that locally in the media, that part of the harm and the disconnection is coming from the fact that so much of this media and stories are not happening from the people living in the community. And even a lot of the stories, let's say the New York Times and things, we're always appreciative, but it's sometimes people who are coming in for a weekend or a different look, and they're getting just a look at it of the area, and then they're reporting about it. And it's not always what we would believe as the same as somebody who's living and is rooted in that same exact community. And so for us, that's really important. And the why also is because attention has become one of the most valuable things in the entire world. We're giving attention to some of the largest tech companies in the world, and now they've become the most valuable companies in the world. And so as our local communities struggle and need more help, I don't know that we all realize that by shifting our attention to more local models, that there's a real value there. And that value can create a regenerative form of income that can continue to spur local economies and create stories. And in our instance, what myself and my partners were really focused on is the fact that storytelling is also tends to come to the people who can pay the highest price. Before this, I'm just a freelancer. And if you want me to tell your story, you got to pay me to tell it. And then when I'm done with it, you got to figure out where it's going to go and how to get people to see it. And you're probably going to go to the Facebooks and the bigger players. But by having a community storytelling platform where the entire community chips in, the burden no longer falls on the incredible folks whose stories are worth sharing, the farmers and the craftspeople. Now there's a symbiotic need from the platform to want to create content. And that's a whole new way of looking at it, where instead of forcing the people struggling like a local farmer to foot that bill, we can tell their story, get their message out, and kind of like rethink about how storytelling is done in general on a local level. And hopefully eventually it feeds out to a global level of just a different way of thinking about this.
Yeah, thanks for expounding upon that. I get it. There's this sensationalism, right, in the media now of like, ooh, get more clicks, and it's, it's really violent, or it's really sexy, or these people are having a terrible fight or something, you're really just feeding off base instincts to get more clicks. And I really like that point that you said of like, hey, these people are actually my local community. I'm not going to like make these people look like a chump or something just so I can sell more clicks on the video. I'm actually going to see them at the farmer's market. And so there's this like rootedness to have some type of balanced storytelling that's more authentic and less sensational. So it really does have that parallel to like the food, you're eating the local food is going to be fresher and more nutritious, right, than the stuff shipped 1,500 plus miles across the country and it's picked, unripe and whatever. So that's, powerful.
Yeah. And it's challenging because the whole system kind of, unfortunately, it points you down that road. So you actually have to work incredibly hard as a team and very intentionally to not get pulled there because, that negative bias that you speak about is very valuable in the online media space. And we're all somewhat wired from our prehistoric times to kind of respond to negativity. And it kind of is, you can see how the larger players have been able to capitalize on that kind of inner psychology or inner workings of our brain in a way that's now not healthy. And so it's really important to have alternative systems and to understand that we do react that way. And that can kind of continue building momentum and energy in the systems that a lot of us actually want to see go away. So it's important to kind of be aware of it so we can all work together to try to break some of these really hard habits. I know this stuff. I work on it every day. I still struggle with it, right? It's that powerful and it's that real. So, yeah.
Well, and speaking of breaking patterns, so tell me more about cooperatives and what does your cooperative look like and why you see that being like just almost as important as what you're doing is how you're doing it.
No, we totally do, man. And like, when we first came up or when I first had this idea and then I got with my co-founders and we kind of started to build this thing out, the idea of a distribution platform and bringing local content together and how to make new content, that all kind of made sense. And there's other models that, you can see how they've done that before. This idea of what the structure was going to be was really challenging to think about, because we're really kind of have the values of a nonprofit, but we're also kind of operating a little bit like a for-profit, and we needed to potentially bring in resources to get this thing off the ground. So I grew up, eating at a local food co-op that my parents shopped at, the High Falls Food Co-op. And so I think from a young age, I was at least somewhat aware of what a co-op was. I'm still learning always, but I think we knew we wanted to make a company that was transformative in the essence of storytelling and how it approached storytelling. But then I wouldn't say we got greedy, but we also were like, wow, can we make the structure transformative as well? Because now that's exciting, right? Can we really try to go both angles? And so when we started to think about the co-op, it felt like that was the right path, or it felt like the most progressive or ability within at least the system that we're in right now to kind of do something different than the way we've been doing things. And so that got exciting, and we started to really say, wow, this might really be it. And then we started to really mostly find research around food co-ops and housing co-ops. And so it felt a little isolating and lost. And as I mentioned the term earlier, it wasn't until we really came across this term of platform cooperativism and kind of got connected with the work that I think Trevor Schultz was doing at the New School and a large Danny Spitzberg, and I might be getting their names wrong and I apologize, but folks like that, it was like, oh my God, all of a sudden reading it was like, wait, you can have these cooperative ideas in this tech world. And that was really exciting that, we don't think we're really creating anything new in the world of tech. I would argue that our innovation in the tech space is more on the equity side of things, is that we have all these great tech companies, or I don't know if I'd call them great, but innovative tech companies that have created new models and ideas that I think now you can take the pieces of them that are working and that we like and try to build something new and try to dismantle other pieces of the system that aren't working. And so for us, we love the idea of getting together and using tech to share our stories and making them accessible to our community. We didn't love the idea of it being owned by a group of shareholders. They were absent from our community, absent from the people making the sacrifice and doing the work. That was where we wanted to kind of rethink things. So we knew the co-op was the right space. We even got a little greedier. Instead of just accepting a single stakeholder co-op, we were like, no, let's go for a multi-stakeholder co-op. Let's really make our lives difficult. My co-founder, Laura, who's amazing, but I think, it's been a lot to take this on and to figure it all out. So yes, we're now a multi-stakeholder cooperative. And the ultimate idea is that to create an organization that the stakeholders are all sitting at the table together. In this instance, the stakeholders are the core founding group, the worker owners that are working at Hutsy and working towards ownership. And we're in the process of forming an artist council to onboard a creative class. So eventually you'll have a board made up of the founding members representing kind of the vision and the management of the company, the workers who are there doing the work every day and really the lifeblood of the organization, and the creatives who typically never get a seat at the table. And now you're hopefully working together to create a model that really works for everybody. And through compromise and conversation, we can get to a place that's different and something that's unique. So that's kind of how our co-op is set up. And we're learning every day. We're like literally just finishing the bylaws. We're getting tons of help from folks like yourself and the folks at Group Muse. That's the other beauty of the co-op space is that it's so collaborative and people are just incredibly generous with their time. I think we all want to see some, this is such a competitive word, but I think some big wins in the co-op space, because I think if we could see those, it could give more energy and more excitement and continue to usher in more people into this space. And I'll just say the last thing is, what's interesting is we talk so much about this pandemic and horrible, and it's been a really hard time for the last few years. And we watch the wealth grow of some companies in a level that is unprecedented. And I say, imagine if Amazon, Airbnb, Netflix were all co-ops. What would the sub-story have been that during this pandemic and this horrible, reality that people are going through, that a sub-story of it, instead of a few group gaining so much wealth, that this incredible amount of wealth was gained by such a large group of people doing the actual work. So it'd be like, yeah, the pandemic was horrible and something that we all went through, but look at this, where instead we went through the pandemic and we went through that. So I'm excited to be a part of it and to join it. And we're working really hard to try to make it work so people believe in this space and join all the other incredible people who've come before us doing this work. So
love it, man. Love it. You're cracking me up. You said we're greedy about adding one share of stakeholders wasn't enough. We were too greedy. That's called generous. That's called generous.
It's the opposite. It's greedy and trying to do too much and think you could be as transformative as possible. But yeah, for us, it's what's the point of doing it if you're not really trying to make a difference? What's the point of building something that already exists? It's like, no, thank you. I'd rather go for a walk outside personally than, repeat the same systems we got out there.
Well, yeah, it's like there's some lip service that we live in a democracy, right? Yeah, I don't know about that. I mean, some people, once every 4 years ago. So what about 50% of people go to vote, So it's like, is that democratic? How about trying to run a worker-owned cooperative that's in a democratic Congress with the artists and see how that works out?
That's exactly right. No, it's for real.
2,000 hours a year.
Teaches you to be real. You got to be able to communicate. It's challenging me all the time, right? I've worked for myself for so long, got to make so many decisions. It would just be like, oh, I want to do this. And then I'm running with it. And it's different. And, it takes breaking down some of the old skills and the bad habits that I've learned and working with people who can teach us new ways and just being patient with each other. And, the world's challenging simultaneously. But for me, it's just the world I want to believe in. I think it helps with my own mental health to build something that is hopeful and could be beautiful and could paint a path of what's possible, and it's creative instead of destructive, and to me that's It's just the best way for me to spend my days these days,
There you go. It's kind of a beautiful type of selfishness. Like, let me create a beautiful world that I can live in and engage, mutual reciprocity with collaborators and colleagues. So let's see. I want to a little bookmark and hear some of the challenges and stuff. But first, tell us more about Hutsy. Like, what's going on right now? What are you excited about? What's about to pop off? Let's hear about it.
Yeah, well, by the time we'll be listening to this, the new Hutsy app will be out. This has been something we've been working on for almost 5 years. So we have an incredible team of people that I just cannot say enough about, who have all dedicated an immense amount of time and effort and focus to building this app. So the app is going to be live. Go to our websites, download the app, get behind it. We've got 50 plus contributors involved in it, all from the area. We've got over 40 plus hours of curated content from creators that we were able to bring into the platform. And we've got a bunch of new Hutsy originals and stuff, exciting stuff as we kind of figure out what original programming could look like. We're out on the road doing a series of events and tours, connecting with our community. And we're really just, you go from this idea that you've had like into this real proof of concept. And it's a shifting of a mindset. It's a shifting of a strategy, of team energy. And so for me, I'm just really excited to take this idea that we didn't have a lot to go off of, but like what we thought the community might love. So a little bit of just like, kind of throwing some spaghetti at the wall. But luckily, there's incredible stories with people. It's one thing to go and tell stories and to hear them yourself, but to edit them into a beautiful form that makes sense and to then put them onto a big screen to share with other community members and to connect together and to build relationships. I can't wait for that. More selfishness, I guess. Like, I just can't wait to have people celebrate the stories and the people that the stories are about. We have this incredible community. And so that's really what's next, is just kind of getting out there and sharing what we've built in both the app form, and we'll be connecting with people in all sorts of events. We have inflatable screens that we'll be bringing and doing outdoor movies. We're partnering with local theaters, the Rosendale Theater, Upstate Films, all sorts of other folks. And so that's really what it's about. And just hearing from the community about what they want, seeing what works. We're a small, nimble team who's ready to adapt and tweak and just keep kind of pushing this thing forward till we have something that's sustainable and working for our community. So that's really where we're moving, is just kind of this. When I bought some blueberry bushes from my local neighbor guy, he dropped them off and he said it was a 3-year cycle. He goes, the first year they're going to root, the second year they're going to shoot, and the third year they're going to fruit. And I think about that a lot in business. And I feel like, we spend so much time rooting and it's so quiet and underground and so non-gratifying in the world that we're all so used to in today's world. And then you're shooting where it's growing and you can see something, but you're not really getting. And we're excited to start to fruit, what we've been building and getting people to enjoy it and vice versa. So that's really the next step.
I get it. It's exciting. You've been building it for 5 years, but now you're actually crossing over to on life, right? You're going to be out on the street fest and talking to people, and you get a booth. You're going to be showing your films and just in real time talking to people and hearing, getting their thoughts and input in terms of what you're doing. That's pretty exciting.
We can't wait.
Tell me about some of the original content that you're excited about.
Man, we've got some really exciting stuff. I mean, certain topics that we think really resonate across the, the region. There's obviously magazines who've been doing stuff. So, probably one of the shows we're most excited about is a show called This Organic Life. It's a food series that's talking about local food systems and regenerative agriculture. And I think it's a super important topic. We all saw how important it became even more during the pandemic and the importance of local food systems. And, we want to shine a light on local farmers and local people working in the food system. Actually, the host of the show is another Good Work Institute alumni, Wen-Jie Yang, who I actually met through it, and she runs Local Roots, an incredible CSA out of Brooklyn that brings vegetables and connects farmers from upstate to the city. And yeah, I just think, the Hudson Valley is known as an agricultural region, and it just made a lot of sense. So it's a 7-episode, 22-plus minute series all about traveling and exploring farms. The beauty of having our own platform is we're not at the control of the bigger players. In that world, you have to cut a lot of things. It wants to be fast. It wants, and obviously we need it to be interesting, but we wanted to talk about some of the denser topics, soil health, certain aspects that we feel are getting cut out of other shows. And so this was our opportunity to talk about some of those topics and to hopefully put out some of the messages that the farmers are really wanting to go into the world, so that we as consumers and community members can be good partners in this local food system and understand the needs of the local farmers and actually show up in a way that's helpful to them. And so it was really great to get out there and meet all these folks and bring their perspective through the show. And so we'll be releasing the first episode from Glenwood that will launch on June 1st when the app goes live. And then we'll be rolling each episode out on a monthly basis. And then we'll be doing a lot of screenings around. So that's exciting. We have another short film that we did called Against the Grain, which is about a local family who grows African rice right here, 5 minutes from where Shawn and I live. You know, it's not every day you hear about people growing African rice in your backyards. So that's a short film about what they go through as a family. It's not easy work. It's not easy to run a small farm. And so that's a short film about them. We have a series that we've worked on together in partnership with Lift Economy that we're super excited about. The title is called The Way Forward. And it comes from, you know, really Shawn and I's connection and chats and conversations around, you know, there's so much stuff in the world that's going really bad. And we all know that. But it feels like sometimes that's drowning out all the incredible people who are really doing great work every day. And, you know, we watch all these documentaries that show you what's wrong. And at the end, I want to crawl into a small hole and feel really sad about the future of reality. And so I stepped back and Shawn and I got on a call and we said, wait, you know, we both are working with some incredible people who are shining a light and showing what's possible. Why don't we kind of get together, bring your network, bring what we can build, and make this series that kind of highlights and showcases organizations, leaders of community who are doing things different. And so we have 2 pilot episodes that we worked on together that we're excited about. We have some other partners that we're bringing on for this next year and already starting to think about those next episodes. So super excited about that. And, you know, our content team run by Angel Gates, my co-founder, and Natasha Scully are making tons more stories. So I'd say jump on the platform. There's going to be a lot of stuff. We're going to be constantly dropping more. And we're going to be open to feedback on what people want to see and hear and how we build this out together. So
tell us about the Community Content Fund and how's that part of the mix?
Yeah, Community Content Fund. This is something that for me, I felt really personally because, you know, I look back after doing this for about 15 years and could see how hard it was to actually bring passion projects to life. I kind of got stuck being a little bit of a mercenary, just bouncing from job to job. And when I look at if somebody said to me, hey, what's that one piece that represents who you are and what you want to be in the world? I probably didn't have it. And so when we got Hutsy started, it felt like we wanted to make a fund that put money directly into artists' hands that allowed them to create those passion projects and to create projects that they truly wanted to bring to life. So we started last year with $15,000 in a fund, set up to give out 3 $5,000 grants. We had 6 community members join us and create a committee. So no one on the team of Hutsy had anything to do with picking them. We wanted to kind of get away from nepotism. We had 42 entries and we picked 3 amazing films, all which will be, or 3 amazing filmmakers, which led to 3 amazing films. All 3 films will be coming out on the Hutsy app this year. And that's a program we're incredibly proud about. You know, again, just getting capital directly into artists' hands seems kind of basic and not a big deal, but we'd be all surprised how little resources go into artists' hands to truly do what they want to do and then to provide them with distribution after the fact. And another GWI alumni, Bob Dandrew, has been incredibly generous to join us this year and to put up another $5,000 to match. So this year we'll actually have $20,000 in the fund and we'll be giving out 4 grants and we'll be starting that process probably in about late June or early July. So check out the website to find out more about that.
So are any of the big networks or big streaming platforms giving cash grants to artists to make their own content?
That's a good question. Not that I know of. I mean, there's definitely a lot of grants that are helping, you know, I mean, I'm not going to say this isn't being done, but like in this capacity, that's pretty hands off that we don't really dictate what they're going to make, how to make it. We don't have creative control over the project. We do ask that it is distributed on Hutsy. That's part of it. But, you know, that's also a bonus because many independent artists struggle to get their work seen. But hopefully this encourages other, you know, big platforms, you know, hopefully that's what this can do is to show other models that, hey, you know what, like we're not knocking you and we're not trying to tear you down, but we're trying to say, hey, there's an opportunity to do more. There's an opportunity to think a little bit more about how we treat people, how we treat the people who are really allowing us to do the work that we're doing. And we're trying to be that example. And, you know, we come from the broken system, right? We didn't sit back and say, oh, let's build this thing as diabolical business people thinking we would get rich. You know, we built this as people coming from the system that was broken, feeling frustrated by it, feeling distrust by it, and saying, how do we reverse engineer that and rebuild trust and rebuild imagination and rebuild passion? And, you know, that's what we're trying to do every day. And we bring a decade to 2 decades of struggles and experiences that frustrated us as a lot of foundation to think about how to do things new. And the Community Content Fund, the co-op, the local aspect of it, the Apprentice Program, these are all things that we picked up along the way that when we had the opportunity to build something ourselves, we knew had to be a part of it.
So tell us about the Apprentice Program.
Yeah, the Apprentice Program is another program super excited about. We believe in workforce development. We believe in training the next group of storytellers. We acknowledge that the industry is predominantly white and male. And it's beautiful that we're shifting towards telling more stories of diverse folks and inclusion. But it's also still a challenge when those are being told by people who are not coming from the same places that the story's about. And so as much as we wanted to instantly hire a diverse team, it's clear that the system hasn't built that. And so we kind of said, you know what, if we're serious about this, we not only have to work on building people or hiring folks that we can in our region that come from those backgrounds, but also recognize the gaps and kind of do something about trying to build the next generation of storytellers. So we did a beta program last year. We had 4 to 5 storytellers in it, amazing people who live in this area who hadn't got to see other parts of it through our program, get to travel around, experience other parts of it, meet other young filmmakers. And, we take them on set. We give them the real experience of what it's like to work as a filmmaker every day, to go into people's houses, to be respectful, to make a living, to be on time. It's not just the gear stuff. It's these other job skills that are important. The group was incredible. We stay in touch with many of them and help place them on jobs here and there. And one of them led to a full-time job with us this year. And we have another cohort of 4 right now that Angel Gates, my partner, runs with Rob Harris. And I can't speak enough about it and the apprentices. And it's a program we're looking for more partners to join us in to keep building this. And we're super excited to help give the skills and the resources to the next generation of filmmakers. And it only helps us because our platform will be better because of it. And so it's, again, maybe selfish, but we've tried to decide selfish in ways that are good for everybody. Friend Micah, who also met through the, GWI, had this amazing thought one day where if, we thought about the word self and selfish, and instead of self being myself, being all of us, then to act selfishly would actually be a good thing and be to act in the best interest of everybody. And so that's what we try to think about. And that's what the multi-stakeholder cooperative kind of keeps us thinking aligned, because you have to think about all the stakeholders in this type of a model.
Right, exactly. If I'm going to be healthy, I need to be embedded in a healthy community, right? So
that's exactly right.
That's beautiful. So this is great, Jess. All the elements of Hutsy, really excited about. It's a wonderful offering to the community and the world. Y'all are working really hard. And we're kind of, we're shining a light on like some of the fruits coming out, like you're saying. You're offering these fruits out. But let's dip back into the challenge. So tell me about some of the things that have been really hard, and then maybe also what you've learned from it, in the spirit of sharing our learnings forward. So not everybody has to grind through the same challenges.
It is hard, and it's been a lot of challenges. And again, I'm a privileged white male living in the world, right? So if it's been challenging for me, I can only acknowledge and admit what that would be for somebody else without that foundation. Getting capital was really challenging. Getting people to believe in something, people having the vision and desire to work towards the magnitude of these types of models and believing that it's worth it and that we can create the world that we all want for ourselves and for the future generations. And so, those are real. I mean, local media is being eliminated on a daily basis. So, the system larger than us is falling apart every single day, and incredible local journalists are losing their jobs, and hedge funds are buying up local newspapers, and democracy struggles when the fragile small democracy we may or may not have left becomes more fragile and more struggling when local media disappears. So, and the smartest, brightest engineers and people graduating college are being recruited to go work for the largest tech companies in the world. And every single day while we have this conversation, they're competing and fighting over how to get more of our attention, using techniques coming from the gambling industry and the tobacco industry and anything they can get their hands on to get more of you attached to their screen and their products. So, that's what we're up against, is some real powers that want that attention focused on systems that don't serve your local community and don't serve the things that we tend to want. So those are the bigger things. We're up against the idea that local media can support itself and that the community is willing to find the value and get behind something. People are very strapped and spread thin at the world right now. And to continue to ask people to support these models is challenging. So, I think we have a lot that we're facing. I think every day inflation and the fate of the world can mentally take its toll on us all. And so I think, for me, living in a beautiful area, working with incredible people, and focusing again on something that's positive and possible is where I put my energy. But yeah, I think hopefully we're all in this together, and that, these models can move forward in a collective being, and that we were able to kind of solve some of the early problems. And there were so many people who came before us that gave us answers and started to lay the path for us to follow. So hopefully we keep moving forward as a group. From my days in the snowboarding, we used to climb mountains. We would, do a lot of backcountry snowboarding, and you'd go to the foot of a mountain and there'd be no tracks, and 6 people have to think about how they get up there. And you would start with the strongest person breaking trail, and he would climb till he could no longer climb. And then he would go to the back of the trail, because then he would be walking in 5 people's footsteps and he would get a nice break. And you would just kind of caterpillar your way up this mountain, kind of taking turns, everybody offering what they could, strongest up front, until you one day or one couple hours later stood on top of a mountain. And so, I hope that Hutsy can push forward and get us and our local model to the top of the mountain. And I also feel that we are following in the footsteps of incredible people doing incredible work. And hopefully we're also laying down a path and a track for other people to join us in and come behind that allows us to collectively do this. I think that Hutsy is part of a collective conscious of ideas that are seeding the world of how we can do things. And we just happen to be kind of trying to figure it out in this neck of the woods. But yeah, the challenges are real. But yeah, we need a big wake up as a consciousness. We need people with resources. This may not, I don't know what people think on the other end of this thing, but a lot less focus on NFTs and crypto and things, and a lot more focus on real social models that make change. I think there's no shortage of capital in the world, and we need to start putting capital into places and investing in people who are really committed to making a difference, not just creating more wealth for a small group of people.
Thanks for that. I love the trail breaking analogy, right? I can hear the crunch of the snow, right? And it's teamwork, right? And that's what we've done. That's what we've done as humans. That's why we're around.
That's what it's all about.
The small groups of humans for millennia, right? Figuring out what we're going to eat, how we're going to shelter, how we're going to take care of ourselves, protect ourselves. It's just like the original small teamwork. So I love that. So who are you watching? Like, who's influencing you? Who are you keeping an eye on to see what they're up to?
Well, this podcast has been an incredible resource for those types of conversations. Definitely, in the early stages of thinking about this, came here a lot for inspiration, heard some incredible people thinking and speaking. Yourself, Shawn, has been a huge inspiration, just getting to know you and the folks at Lyft. Again, coming across Trevor Schultz and the work that they're doing at the New School and platform cooperativism was a game changer. Just feeling a part of something. You can feel really isolated when you're trying to do some things and feel alone and feel silly and feel like, what the heck am I doing? So there's been solidarity in finding other folks who don't think this is crazy, don't think it's crazy to spend your life trying to build new systems and new models. We kind of fall into this niche platform world, like it's a smaller idea. So like Means TV has been very inspiring in what they've been able to build and the way that they're focused on doing things. Quelly TV is another one that's also been inspiring to watch and super focused. And I hope we can all continue to build solidarity together. Reverie TV is another one. Going back even earlier, Brick TV out of Brooklyn and, DC TV is probably one of the earliest examples of this idea of regional storytelling. Those 2 earlier ones are both on nonprofit models. And then Means, and I think Quelly and ourselves have all moved into the co-op model. So it's been great to see the foundation of regional storytelling now advance into a different space. Those are the people we're looking at there. Start.coop is a great incubator program and working to kind of help get new entrepreneurs and people in that space. Zebras Unite is another organization that seems really exciting and innovative. So we definitely keep an eye on them. Block by Block News is a kind of locally owned news outfit out of Maryland. Some folks we met at the New School conference. So, again, we want to be inspired. We want to inspire others. And there's incredible people doing work that we're always trying to look around. And then locally, on a local level, there's incredible organizations doing stuff that's super inspiring. Wild Earth works with young kids and does nature work. I mean, you can't be more inspired than the work that they're doing. So yeah, I feel really lucky to live where I live, to be in the circles of the people that I'm in. And we're always looking to see others and learn more. It is interesting how you change your phases of an organization from, initial inspiration. You do a lot of research, and I was reading and, since we've been building this and heads down, I don't get to do as much of that anymore. And And it can suck and it can feel frustrating and it can feel like you're not doing your homework because someone say, oh, have you heard of this? And you're like, no, I haven't heard of that. I'm like head down. But, again, it's for me always trying to find that balance, which is challenging.
Well, but at the same time, you gave me like a dozen reference points to watch at some of my, we've been working together and some I haven't even heard of. So that's great. So you definitely have your finger on the pulse, even though you got your head down and digging the ditches yourself. What do you need right now? How can our listeners help you grow the Next Economy?
Yeah, get the app. That's a huge help, right? When people can get the app. And we want people to go to our website to download it, and we'll have the sign up pages and we'll be giving better deals, for those who don't know. And I don't even know if I'm allowed to say this, but the app stores take a third. So anyone who's listening to this who wants to support their app friends, when you buy that from the app store, a third of that's going to the big players every single day. When you go directly to the websites, they don't take that. So, we really need people to download the app and support, local storytelling, get the content. The app will be available at www.hutsy.tv. So all that stuff will be there. We'll have tons of other information, come out to some events we're doing. Shawn's such a great example of this, and he's one of our biggest watchers, and I just love him and appreciate that for that. If we all just spent a week or an hour a week, even an hour a month, looking at alternative sites like ours and giving attention to local media and podcasts, and every one of us just did that, that would transform things huge. So I think when we ask what we need, sign up for the newsletter, get behind this, support local shopping, support eating local, spread the word about watching local. Next time you're watching content, think about, who made this? Why are they trying to put this? Where's the money going that's creating this? And, again, there's nothing wrong with entertainment. We all want it and we all need some escapism from the world. But try to find a balance of it with documentaries and information and that kind of stuff. And I think if we all just did that a little bit, including myself, it would make a big difference. And my partner Angel likes to say believing is contagious. I think believing that we can have the world that we want and that we can live in a world that's creative and caring and compassion is the most important thing. I think it's sadly uncreative how we're all living today to think that this is the best that we all are capable of with knowing what we've done and what we've been through. I see so much more, and I know we're so capable of living in such a more beautiful way. So for me, if we all just move in that space, models like Hutsy automatically work. Models like the local food co-op automatically work. Models like Wild Earth automatically work, right? So all that stuff's helpful. And suggesting local stories is really helpful. We're always looking to find new stories and shine a light on people who have incredible stories that they want to share with their communities.
Well, thanks so much, Jesse. Not only do you believe, but you're actually building it. So that's both sides coming together right there. So just really appreciate you and your team and your great work. And thanks so much for being with us today on Next Economy Now. And best of luck with Hutsy.
Thank you so much. It's honestly such an honor to be here with you and all your listeners. And you've been such a great friend, Shawn. And and the team. I just can't stress enough about the co-founders and the team and what it really takes to build something like this and how blessed we are to have incredible people working on this together. And just thank you so much and hope to catch up again soon.
All right. Take care.
All right. You too.
Next Economy Now is a production of Lift Economy. To listen to all of our episodes, go to lifteconomy.com/podcast. That's LIFT economy.com/podcast. You can also sign up for our monthly newsletter at lifteconomy.com/newsletter. Please also rate and review our podcast on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for listening.